Lucky you.
36 best
Tuned
holes in
into
golf.
Alternate Shots podcast,
Barney's Army.
where we talk about golf,
Sandy.
poker,
James Bond.
horse racing,
Double.
classic movies.
Zenyatta.
We have no script.
Down the stretch they come.
We are glad you joined us.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Billy. Good afternoon. We're featuring 5 West, that wonderful hole in the middle of the front nine at Wingfoot, or it kind of reminds me of 5 cards, which is poker, maybe 5 slots and a slot machine for you.
Yeah, I have some nice 5-card hits on slot machines.
Yeah, so today,
Very lucky things.
So today, without a script, we're going to definitely cover 5 West, and we'll venture into some of the details around poker.
I would say that, if you're going to do 5 Westerns in relation to 5 West, we might want to save it till we get to the 36th episode, because there's so many great Westerns.
We'll do an episode just on Westerns. So for us members, 5 West is a straightaway, typically 3-shot par 5. From where we play the white tees, it's 484 yards, and it can extend a little bit because the back of the golf course there kind of stops at the houses behind the tee, and so is Griffin Avenue, right? So it goes to about 516,
which sounds like a short par 5, and for the big hitters it would be from that distance, but for normal golfers you rarely see somebody hit it in 2. I own 2 eagles on that hole, but they were both holing out, once from 95 yards and one from the front right bunker. So that was
goodness.
There was some luck involved in that.
My hat's off to your brother Neil, because he saw so many things people didn't see. Yes, we were out playing one late afternoon, and I was remarking as we're coming up 2 West how beautiful the elm is, and we've talked about that in the 2 West episode. He said, Bobby, you can't believe this is before the West Course restoration really took in full force. As they were going to take out some unnecessary trees, or as I call them, big weeds. He told me these trees over here, there was many, there were dozens more. There's 4 that you can see right there in the shade before the green, right?
Yeah.
Maybe 5, but there had to be 20.
And there's that magnificent elm back there on 2, that as you're coming up 5 West fairway, you might think it's on 5.
Even from here, which is about 120 yards away, it does look like it's right off, and it's not that far as you exit the green over in the back right down those little wooden stairs. It's not more than 20 yards from there.
Yeah, maybe 30 yards, but not much more. Yeah,
but look at how pretty that is. This is full spring.
Years ago those front bunkers squeezed in a lot tighter, so you running it up there was not really an option.
I remember playing with your cousin Owen, and if you go back to the tee, if we can just imagine where that tee is, the fairway slopes left to right. This didn't seem to bother Owen. I said, Owen, where are you aiming? Oh, I just go over the trees. I said, really? And I hadn't quite seen the largesse of his ball flight yet, and he took it straight over those trees. I never saw anybody do that. He had the height at that time that you see a guy like Justin Thomas or Rory McIlroy have today, which is, with a wooden club, was pretty hard. He just smashed it. And he had nothing more than like a 7 or an 8 iron into the green. You've probably seen that many times, right?
I saw him. He had played once in a year. And I think it was the 25th anniversary of the cystic fibrosis outing, which we played in a lot, Owen and myself and 2 other guys, Chris and John Tofflon, may he rest in peace. And we played every year, so we got together again for the 25th, and Owen hadn't played in a year. And we started on 5 West, and he had a driver 6 iron into that green. We all dropped our jaws as usual. It's like Owen, he just had a very beautiful swing. Didn't look like he was swinging hard, but the ball, to this day, I haven't seen guys hit it as far as him. Even with updated equipment. The one on the right off the tee, that's no picnic. That's got a real big face on it. So
let me take you back to 2006. So 2 people we watched. Mickelson was at Wingfoot a lot. He was actually a member. He was around so much. Everybody embraced him. He was signing flags, the Masters. We watched him play Tom Neoporti, and he had a money match with Tom Neoporti, and it was a simple match. Neoporty would play from the white tees. Mickelson would play from the back. But Mickelson had to play 2 balls on every shot and take the worst one.
Ah,
So on 5 West, he drove 2 perfectly up the middle, just to the left of the fairway bunker. He seemed to have really long ways in. I think he hit a hybrid, and he hit the first one beautifully on the green. Pin was right there in the middle like it is now. The second one he missed to the right. And now in May, the golf course is ready for the Open. The rough is even thicker because of the spring growth and all that. He hit it in the right rough. So because he had to play the worst ball, that's the one he had to hit. He hit 2 flop shots, and he was not able to hit the green from over there. They both went off to the edge.
wow.
And, that was really interesting. I've never seen anybody play that, but that's a great way to take a good player against not such a good player and make, without any strokes, kind of make it interesting. And
Well, plus
Mickelson,
it adds fatigue to Mickelson. He's playing 36 holes.
well, he was in great shape. He was just trying to milk Tom Neoporty for every piece of information. And darn if he should have milked how to play 18 a little better, or how to chip out. Like Tom would have said, hey, when you're near a tent over there, the
Yeah.
USGA tent, maybe you should chip
Get
it
the
out
ball
and try
back
to
in
make
play. Yeah.
hit it back and play and hit it. The other was Tiger. So I remember this vividly. The last time I played, I walked 3 rounds of golf in one day. My son caddied for Tom Danino and I in the morning. We were done by 9:30. Tiger shows up at 10 with his shorts on and walks right to the first tee and does a practice round. My son caught wind of this, and we walked, Tom and I, we walked Tiger the whole way.
Nice.
So the 5th hole, he hits it in the bunker, and he was playing by himself, just going through every group issue, about a group a hole. On the 5th hole, he hit it in the beginning of that fairway bunker. There's a little lip there, just like right in the beginning. There's a little ear there. He was up against it. Maybe a pro like an Ernie Els would have maybe attempted a 7-iron and put it down here by this bunker here, right?
Right.
Tiger said to Caddy, give me the 3-iron. He gets in there and he twists the 3-iron open about 10-15 degrees. And darned if he doesn't hit the 3-iron, misses the lip in front of him, and hits it right on the edge of the green, just to the left of the bunker. He's one of the greatest shots I've ever seen in my life. And
Yeah, he's playing a different game.
It was Mickelson. Mickelson was a little further back from this picture here on the left. That's 120 yards or so, maybe,
Right.
from the bottom of our picture, roughly. So if you go back 40 yards or so in the left rough, again, it was pretty thick there, maybe 3 or 4 inches, but it was that thick stuff. And remember, Billy, the ball, no matter where you hit it, it always sunk down to the earth layer.
Yep.
So you had to find it. And then if you found it, guys like us would have to chip it out right with a wedge, a 9-iron, or sand wedge. Mickelson looked at it, and I think it was Saturday or Sunday, and he took out a hybrid. It's only 160, 155, maybe 162. And it looked like he was trying to scoop a scoop 4 hybrid or whatever over that bunker by the green and on, right? So he's looking at the shot and he goes at it. Darned if he didn't hit it 8 feet.
Right.
He only hit it not 8 feet to the pin. He hit it 8 feet from where he started.
Right.
So you think about how he lost that Open. He might have lost it here on the 5th hole trying that shot rather than taking a wedge, just popping it down there. A wedge from where he was would have rolled right in front of the green, right? Maybe gets it up and down.
And that's an argument for not having the rough be 7 inches deep, because he wouldn't have even considered a hybrid at that point. But then, this green is very awesome green. There's so many pin placements and so much nuance to it. Where do you think is the hardest position on this green?
Yeah, I've thought about that. Again, going back to you, I think if you're putting from the middle or further back, I think the front left might just be the toughest spot.
I agree.
There's just enough. Now we're talking when the greens are running 12, let's say reasonably fast, right? Yep. A good putter can get it within a foot or two. A good putter can make it. But if you're slightly off, and US Open speed like that's going to trickle down right into that fairway. Yeah. And now you're faced with a chip shot to the tabletop or whatever size area there is, right?
And it's not a straightforward read when the pin's in the front left.
No, I've read it to both, like you said, on 18 West before. You can look at a putt and see it read both ways from 1 foot apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very tough read. It's a greeny green, and it's one of these greens that from back to front is pretty fast.
But you've arrived at the hole with a, a little bit more optimistic. You get through 1, 2, and 3, and then you're going to get a stretch of holes that, like Wingfoot, I say never lets up. But 4, 5, 6, 7, you feel like you may be able to compete on those holes. And then this green can throw you off that dream in a minute. But it's a straightforward enough hole that you see a lot of pars on this hole, to be honest with you.
Yeah, even if it's a par four for the best amateurs and professionals that play the tournaments year in and year out, Wingfoot, going for that green from 220 or 30 yards, especially before that right bunker in the fairway or the left out of the rough, you hit the green, it often shoots over the green. And if
Yes,
you
and that's
happen to carry your second shot to the back of the green, you've got no chance of holding it. The rough
green.
over there is not necessarily the easiest kind of rough, right? It's a little unforgiving over there.
Yeah, and if the pin's in the back, you have short-sighted yourself off the backside. That's not an easy up and down, regardless of where the pin is. But if the pin's in the back, which is probably where it is if you've hit it that far beyond because you're trying to get it back there, you have a very difficult little flop shot.
Yeah, you might have to concede putting it on and taking a 30, 40 or bigger putt just to try to save a 5. Because if you get too cute, you're gonna have the same chip shot again. For guys like us, I think when you're chipping and the green's going away from you, it's more so difficult and the visual is difficult.
Yeah, and God help you if you decelerate and belly shot it, you're gone.
Yeah, and it's also not one of those where you can hit a 7-iron and bounce it into the bank because you're dealing with 4 inches of rough just over the edge of that green, right?
Yeah,
And
and
it's
if you
not going to bounce
miscalculate
up.
that, yeah, you're just going to be in the same position you were in.
Unlike say 13 east, if you miss it to the left, I imagine you like me, like you said, 13 east is harder to hit
In
in
two than
2
one.
than 1.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're over there and the grass is a little barer because it's heavily treed, hard
Right.
ground. You can hit a 7-iron, you could hit a hybrid, you could hit a putter. And all you're trying to do from there is bounce it up so it hits on the edge of the green and just comes
Right.
over the hill. And that green's so small, if you're successful that you're going to have a 10, 15 or shorter putt for par. Not
Well,
so
you'd
here.
be on the green. Yeah, no, not so here. No.
What about that
Not
front
so
right bunker if the pin's in the back too? I mean, we often find ourselves in that bunker.
very often. And it could be that's a deep kind of bunker. The sand is thick in there. That can be a difficult shot for sure. I mean, some of the sandier players that we play with can get up and down easy enough with the pin in the back. But the danger again is, you skull it a little bit or you hit too much and you go off the back of the green, or you protect against that and you're down in the front. You have a 15, 25, 30-foot putt back up the hill there.
Back in
Yep.
1974, I, like a lot of my buddies at Wingfoot, were asked to caddy the 1974 US Open. It was all by lottery back then. My best friend at the time, God rest his soul, Joey McGee. Joey McGee and I played more golf than any two guys should have been allowed to play when we were in our 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, our teen years. And
Yep.
He said to me, he called, Monday was the first day of the Open and he got picked. I said, "Who'd you get, Joey? Who'd you get?" He said, "I got Sam Snead." And Sam Snead was in his 60s or around that age. I'm not exactly sure, maybe early 60s, but he had the game to win the US Open. It was the only major he had won. Here's the guy who's won more tournaments than anybody at the time, and he never won his own championship.
Wow.
So Joey's all excited. I saw him
Slamming
that.
Sammy.
I didn't get a bag until the next day, but I said, "How was it going?" He said, "Oh, Monday is great. He's hitting everything. His putting's okay. It's not great. We all knew, he putted all different ways, but he was getting it down in 2. He's hitting it tee to green. Great." Tuesday, same thing. That I saw him on Wednesday, and he's all dejected. I said, "What's up?" He said, "Oh, I was out caddying for Snead, and he had a drive on the 5th hole. And he had about 230, 240, maybe a little bit longer. And he said, 'Give me the driver, Joe.' And he took the drive. And, pros like that hit drivers off the deck all the time, right? Anyway, Snead took his driver out and hit this shot and pulled something in his back. He went to the hospital, and that was the end of it for him.
Oh, man.
What a thrill to have had that, lottery chance to caddy, even though he didn't get a chance to compete. My friend, what a thrill he got there.
And
And
he must have his whole life wondered what could have been,
you saw Hale Irwin won it. Sam Snead was hitting it as well as Hale Irwin, as far as I could tell. Hale Irwin holed a lot of putts, I think, in the 74 Open.
Hale Irwin, when he won, he could have won a relay race too.
Yeah.
The way he would run around the green.
Well, on the ninth hole, he made something like a 35 or 40 footer. Another high school friend of mine, Peter McGarry, came back. His family moved out of town. They moved to Colorado. He asked Gene Hayden if he could caddy, and he came and caddied in it. And he, by luck, got Hale Irwin. Well, the bag was almost as tall as Peter McGarry. When you look at that, the bag and Peter McGarry look like twins.
Right.
And he's holding onto the pin. The pin's way up here. And if you can remember 9 West, Hale Irwin's sort of in the front left and the pin's in the middle, and he makes this tremendous putt, and he's going crazy over it. And you're right. I think that might have been where he thought he was going to win the US Open. There was a lot of holes left to play, but and he did finish at 7 over, which is a high score. But he making that putt, I think if he had 3 putted, he would have finished 9 over.
Right.
And that would have brought guys like Arnold Palmer and Forrest Fessler and guys like that into the opportunity to win.
Game of inches.
I'm like you, when I play the West Course. And Damon said it best the other day, you just got to tough it out on 1, on 2, and 3. Even if you're a mid-handicap golfer or a higher hand, 12, 14 handicapper, if you can be 3 or 4 over going into the 5th hole, you look at it this way. You can make a 4 here. You can make a 4 on 6. You can make a 3 on 7. If you manage to go 4-4, you're probably going to have a round of golf around 38 or 39 or 40, which is awesome for a 12 handicap on the toughest golf course in the world, right?
Right. But again, that's the reprieve. 4, 5, 6, 7. 8's going to eat you up again. And then you get another little break on 9. And then 10 we'll get to one of these days. But that could be an iceberg for the Titanic in anybody's game.
Yeah, we might have to solicit some inside information on 10 West from our friend Paulie.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paulie's seen it all.
The neighborhood expert.
Or as we move from the green felt of Wingfoot, the 5th West, oftentimes it's green felt in a casino. This picture, though, it's more of a chocolate or a mauve or a brown, right? They got cute.
Yeah, but there's enough green in there to make it worth it.
What do those greens represent?
Those are $25 chips, 25 each. And there's a lot of them there.
That's a green chip, right?
Yeah, someone was having a good day at the poker table there.
So in terms of poker, if you have 4 of these like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, you got 100, right?
Yep.
Or if you have a stack, that's a stack. That's a standard stack, which is 20 chips, right?
$500.
$500. If you have 20 of these and they're black chips, that would be
$2,000.
$2,000, right? And a black chip. This is a black chip here. And then the $5 denomination is typically red, and sometimes it varies. And usually we'll see the casino name on here, right?
Yep.
The Palm Beach Kennel Club, it'll be here. Or if it's Mohegan Sun, right? And then since we play in a game,
there's other things about the chips that make them difficult to counterfeit. But those are hidden things in there.
Right. They put chips in there, right? Right.
I'm not sure what they do. If I knew, I could probably counterfeit chips. Or you can't get away with it. They catch the counterfeit chips pretty quick.
Yeah, because if you walk into a cage in a casino and say cash these out, you're going to walk away with $500. And if they're counterfeit, it's not a bad
You're going to walk away with handcuffs.
You're gonna, and you're going to go into the room below. You're going to get back roomed, right?
Yeah. Like in the movies. You want the money or you want your hand?
Yeah. And so this is not a denomination, or this is just helpful in the game that we play. And this is called the button, or the dealer button. Tell us what this does.
That designates where the action begins. The person left of the button is the first to act after the flop. The way no limit poker works is there's what they call a small blind and a big blind. Those are forced bets. So if it's a 2-5 table, the small blind is $2, the big blind is $5, and then the action starts left of the big blind before the flop. After the flop, the action starts. Button is an advantageous place to be because you become the last to act. So you get to see what everybody's doing. You can bluff from that spot. It's a very positional game, no limit poker. I mean, cards are cards and luck is luck, but position is probably the most strategically key aspect of the game. Being in position.
Yeah, what was
It
our friend, the non-resident member from the West, who's a very good poker player, tell us the 4 Ps? What are those 4 Ps?
Patience, 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 patience.
Yeah, it's like the lesson of real estate. Everything's about location.
Yeah.
And probably in poker, we can come back to patience because
Yeah.
we've all lacked patience, but patience, position, pot odds, and the last one is pairs.
Pairs are difficult to get.
You could go back and Google Doyle Brunson. He's probably said it 1,000 times. It's tough to make a pair.
Doyle
in
Brunson,
poker.
who probably he won the World Series of Poker main event 2 times in a row with the 2 luckiest hands of all time. Both times with 10 deuce offsuit, and both times they won, and they were both completely ridiculously lucky that he hit them. Not that he played them badly. He was in the first instance, he was against an amateur and he was trying to bully him out, and the guy had flopped top pair. I think he was ace jack and he flopped ace jack, and Doyle ran 10 deuce deuce or something after that to catch the boat. And the second time, almost the same thing. He ended up with a boat again, but he didn't need it.
Home game, if you lose $100 buy-in,
you can buy it back in,
buy back rent, whatever the buy-in rules are. In
right. So your range and your risk will be a lot different.
So when Doyle was down to the end in those 2 years, he was basically heads up against one other opponent.
Right.
So any 2 cards basically is playable at that point. And in the first year, he was using any 2 cards to bully the guy down, maybe whittle his stack down, maybe not to win right there, but he got lucky and went runner, full house, right?
The odds against him were probably the same as getting bit by a polar bear and a tsetse fly in the same day.
Right.
But he hit the hand.
Patience. Let's talk about that. It's really imperative that you use patience in tournament play, right?
I think Helmuth, I remember a quote when I first started playing, said, "I was a great poker player, but I became a much better player when I became more patient. And then I became the best in the world when I became even more patient." And if you watch him play to this day in some of these high stakes games, you know, they give him a lot of grief because he's the poker brat and whatever else he is, but he is one of the top players in history and always will be, because he not only reads cards right, he has the patience. He doesn't have the patience when he gets beat; he'll explode. But he has.
But that's to get the hands over at that point. It doesn't matter. Up until that point in time, he's kept his cool. I've never seen him lose his cool in a hand.
No, and he'll lay down ace king pre-flop sometimes, and he's and that's patience. So
I've seen him lay down top pair, given, you know, maybe he had the king and the king came on, but there was like a jack 10 of diamonds and he didn't have any diamonds. Yeah. And I've seen him walk away from hands like that too.
Yeah, he's almost saying like, you can bluff me out of the pot because I'm not going to chase a dream here. But one of these days, when you try to do that to me, you're going to run into a buzzsaw, and then I'll take your chips. And he'll say that at the tables. It's like, I lay all these traps and people get lucky, but I'll end up with their chips.
Well, he not only lays traps. A lot of times there are people, and we play with them, where the flop will come 2-2-10, and they started with 10-2, and they're right next to the button. They're the first act. They're right to the left of the button, and they check. And then somebody else checks. And then one of the lunkheads we plays with, he's got, king, queen, and he thinks he's got a good hand against 10-2-2, right? Because he's got 2 overs,
he thinks he can steal it because of everybody checked. Yeah.
Yeah. So he makes it $7, right? And then the next thing you hear is $27. The raise from the guy who flopped the full house with the 10-2, like Doyle Brunson, right? The unlikely full house. And then the guy with the king, queen, maybe they're suited. Maybe there's one of his suits, king, queen of diamonds. Maybe there's a diamond on the board. He says, I can backdoor a diamond. What good is backdooring a flush when there's a pair on the board, Billy? How many times you told me that?
He's dead to run a runner. And what's worse is he ends up making the call and then a king or a queen hits. And now he thinks, aha. You hear Vince Van Patten making references to the guy who flopped the boat. Show tunes are going off in his head. But
That's
when
right.
this guy raises the other guy, alarms should be going off in his head. He should be going, whoops, maybe I'm in the wrong place here. Which is what happened in the very first hand of the World Series of Poker with Sammy Farha. I forget who the other guy was, but Farha had ace 10.
Wasn't it the son of Goldie Hawn?
Might have been, yeah. And he
Yeah.
had pocket tens, and the flop came, ace 10.
They both, yeah, it was an uncanny, very first hand.
Very first hand. That guy put up 10 grand, flops a tens full of aces boat, and loses all his money to an aces full of tens boat. And
Right.
the only way the tens full could have gotten out of that hand is if Farhad showed him his cards. There's no human being. Someone like Daniel Negreanu might say, "Oh my God, you have ace 10," but he'd still call.
That's another one that an old adage, right? Don't go broke on an unraised pot.
Yep.
Right. I think
Yep.
Doyle might have said that. Maybe somebody said it before him. But what does that mean, Billy? You're playing a game, Texas Hold'em,
and also don't do the pulling when the donkey's doing the pushing. So you have to play completely differently if you flop trips. The difference between a set and trips is a set is you have a pair in your hand and you make three of a kind on the flop. Trips is you have a card in your hand and a pair hits the board, giving you three of a kind. It's a substantial difference in terminology. So if you flop trips, you could be someone else could flop better trips. So you need to protect that hand.
Define the difference between aggressive player or an aggro player and a nit.
A nit, it's an easy thing to get stuck in a nit type of play, which is check, call, check, call, check, call. They call them, call centers, but calling stations. Yeah. There are times when being a calling station matters. It depends on the people you're playing with. If you're playing with, really good players, you're dead if you're a calling station. You need to understand who you're playing and play to their level. But if you're playing with guys who don't really care about the $300 and they flop bottom pair and they're going to see if they can get a third one, that's a different thing. And if you're going to be a calling station against those guys, you're going to end up getting hurt. An aggressive player is very hard to read if he stays aggressive the whole time, because he's going to play 4-6 offsuit, maybe not that good, depending on his range, the same way as he plays ace-ace. And you're not going to be able to tell the difference. What happens, an aggressive player can turn an average player into a calling station.
Aggressive, yes.
Sometimes to his benefit.
I played with Mark, this guy, I call him Mark Type. Could have easily called him Mark Nit. I said to him after the session where we sat down at 9 o'clock and at 12:30, he played 3 hands.
Action Dan.
He played 3 hands. Started with $200 and he cashed out for over he cashed at 1,100. He won 900. I said, that is discipline. He played 3 hands. He played.
We had a guy at Mohegan Sun. They called him Action Dan. If he was in the hand, he had kings, aces, or ace king.
That's what Mark Type had. He had one-handed aces, one-handed kings, and one-handed ace king, and he won all 3 of them.
Yep.
And I asked him at the end of it, and he did very, very well. Because if you're not playing in the hand, every orbit, you're going to be giving the $2 and $5 in a 2-5 game or 1-2. Your antes are going to go, so you get blinded off. So it's not free.
That's why you see the grinders will, sit down at a table where the next hand they'd be the big blind, and they say they'll wait 3 hands and let the button pass them so they get their 6 or so free looks.
They do that. And the grinders will also, with an ace jack in position, and there's say $10 in the pot, they will make it expensive. And oftentimes all the other players who limp in will fold.
Right.
And what they've done there is they've secured $12, $15, which is 3 rounds of blinds or 2 rounds of blinds, depending on the game you're playing in, right?
Right.
Yeah.
See, the grinders understand that it's not a 3-hour game.
Yeah.
It's a 3 million hand game.
So Billy, moving from the Cadillac of poker, Texas Hold'em, let's talk about that story. It wasn't just a few months back, right? I was here
Back in July.
I was here in Florida, and you were in your room in one of the casinos up there. Maybe it was the Mohegan Sun.
Yeah, Mohegan
I
Sun.
call you up. Hey, Billy, what's going on? I didn't know where I'd get you. I thought maybe I'd
I
get you Johnny Rockets. I might have got you on the poker table.
and you caught me in a particular mood. I had gotten a little bit whipsawed at the poker table, and I played for a while. And what I often do is to take a break, I'll go play video poker, which is a little less stressful than dealing with every hand. And there's a lot of luck involved. And I was on this machine, and I was doing pretty well on the machine, and I decided, I'm going to go up and have lunch. I ordered room service, and that's when you called and asked me how I'm doing. I said, well, the poker's been mediocre, but I was on this video poker machine, and I think it wants to pay me off. It's giving me good hands, and it's giving me a lot of draws to the straight flush.
Well, you said that to me 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
And I had a feeling, we have this feeling a lot. It always doesn't come through, but I had a feeling, and I asked you, okay, I don't really know video poker. How do you get the big payout in video poker? Is it quad aces? Is it what is it? And you told me, and it's worth mentioning.
Well, if you look at the machine you can see what the payouts are. The first thing to understand about video poker is in order to get the max payouts, you have to bet at least 5 units. So if it's a $1 machine, you have to bet $5. If it's a $5 machine, you have to bet $25. Otherwise, you're not going to get the max payout. And if you look up there, you can see what the max payouts are for all the different hands. So I play $20 a hand, which is $20 machine. That's 20 units, so it covers everything. And I play it to try and catch quads because it's $500 every time you catch quads, and that's what I'm happy with. But after discussing this with you that day, you were like, you got to go back to the machine. I said, I really feel like it wants to give me a straight flush. You said, you got to go back. And I said, well, I can't go back now.
I even said to you, you go back and call me at 5 o'clock when you hit the jackpot. I said that.
And let me
what
know.
else am I going to say? Like, when you tee it up on 7 West and you have a hole in one, go have a hole in one. Yeah, right.
So I'm playing that, and I'm doing okay on the machine going into this. And I get dealt, as you can see by what's held there, Jack 10 King of clubs. And I literally said, well, I've been talking about it all day. If I'm going to get it, I got to hold those 3 cards, which I probably would have held anyway. But boom, look what comes. Ace, queen of clubs. Machine starts whistling at me. Bing, 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 bing. It's, it's a $16,000 hit for a $20 bet. And while that was still going on, I called you. I was like, I texted you.
Yeah.
I hit it.
I remember.
It was uncanny. I had caught quads. It was, by the way, the best night I ever had in Vegas. We were flying out late, and I was winning so much. I won so much video poker. Then I was winning at craps and roulette. It was, blackjack and roulette. It was ridiculous. Strangers were kissing me at the roulette table. And I said to Alice, why don't you go back? And I don't want this to end. You go take the flight. I was at the Tropicana, and we were flying out at midnight on America West, and she was like, no, I'm not leaving you here. I said, I'll give you all the money because I don't need it the way this thing's are running. She's like, no, we're going. And thank heavens we did. I had so much money, I couldn't even count it. I kept giving her black chips to go cash. It was a night to remember, and I always will. I kept the hat that I had from being out there. It's a silly looking Panama sun hat, but what a night that was.
The machines were mechanical in those days, much more mechanical.
Much more, yeah.
There's some software.
They had wheels spinning.
So you would often, what people told me that thought they could beat the slots is you had to find the machine that was a little off, that was paying out at a higher level. Sometimes they said it that way because they want the bells and whistles to go off that gets everybody else in the casino, right?
Yeah, and they're required to pay 5%, so or whatever it is. It makes you think you're going to win, but it doesn't work that way. What they're basically saying is we're only going to keep 95 cents of every dollar you bet. We can live with that. We don't need the whole dollar.
Well,
but yeah, you're right. Some of the machines get hot, and that happened to me too. At the Desert Inn years ago, we were running up. It might have even been the same night. We were running the thing wild. And back in those days, you didn't get a ticket. You got paid in coins.
Right.
3 times on this video poker machine, the message came up, hopper empty, call attended. I loved it. I wish I could have taken pictures back then of that. And we ran that machine crazy, and then we went to a show or something like that. And when we came back, we went back to that machine, and I couldn't get a pair. And some lady came up and said, I don't know if I should say anything or not, but I saw you guys here before winning, and then I saw when you left, someone came over and opened up this machine. I was like, thank you.
Yeah, they fixed it.
We're out of here.
Well, yeah, this is and I think there's not a day this machine was in the Mohegan Sun, right?
Yes.
There's not a day that you go to the Mohegan Sun that you don't go by and maybe tap the machine a little bit as you go by, or play it, or both.
There's a bank of 3 of these machines. They used to be in the high limit slots area. Now they're out sort of in the corridor outside that area. I go directly, when I get there, I go directly to these machines and always have. And before I even check into my room, if I haven't already checked in, sometimes I stop upstairs and check in first, but otherwise I stop there before I ever go to the room with my bag, and I'll put $100 in there and see if I get off to a good start. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
I don't know what was better, Five West and the stories on Five West, the poker, or the slot machine. But this was awesome. I hope our podcast friends enjoy learning a little bit more about gambling, about casinos. And thanks for joining us
Casper,
today.
Billy
We
Harmon,
really appreciate your
Double
feedback.
Indemnity,
And please
Arky,
subscribe to the
Two
show
Outer,
and hit
Claude
the bell
Harmon,
icon so you get notified
Movie
of
Classics,
new episodes.
Mark Gable,
Hit them
Odd
hard
Job,
and hit them off.
Best 36 Holes.